Hello dear students, welcome to the lecture 4 of Security of Information Systems. So today's topic is
Cryptography, Part 2.
okay, let's start Mac and Mac algorithms. So this Mac is not the Mac that we know. You know, when we type Mac to the Google, what comes to our mind is MAC address of our network cards. So MAC address is usually a media access control. However, this MAC is different. This is computed message authentication code. And when we search as MAC algorithms, you see it is being displayed on the Google. So what is it? Let's start to get some idea from Wikipedia. As you can see, they have added a note not to be confused with media access control, which is the MAC address that we know commonly. Okay, so let's start.
In cryptography, a message authentication code, MAC, sometimes known as a tag, is a short piece of information used to authenticate a message, in other words, to confirm that the message came from the stated sender, its authenticity, and has not been changed. The MAC value protects a message's data integrity, as well as its authenticity, by allowing verifiers, who also possess the secret key, to detect any changes to the message content.
Okay, so what MAC's doing is confirming the message source and its authenticity. Okay, so this is not about ciphering the message. This is about verifying the content of the message is not changed, not forged, and the source of the message is as it is claimed to be. Okay, so let's read our slide.
MAC means two things. 1. The Computed Message Authentication Code HMK. 2. General name for algorithms used to compute a MAC.
Okay, so
In practice, the MAC algorithm is e.g. Hmac, hash-based MAC algorithm. Cbc Mac, CBC-based MAC algorithm. CMAC, cipher-based MAC algorithm.
okay, and
MAC algorithms, aka keyed hash functions, support data origin authentication services.
let's get some more information from other pages. I think there was a good page explaining. Okay, this was a good page to explain it. Okay, so
Another type of threat that exists for data is the lack of message authentication. In this threat, the user is not sure about the originator of the message. Message authentication can be provided using the cryptographic techniques that use secret keys as done in case of encryption.
okay, so let's read it.
Message Authentication Code (MAC) algorithm is a symmetric key cryptographic technique to provide message authentication. For establishing MAC process, the sender and receiver share a symmetric key K. Essentially, a MAC is an encrypted checksum generated on the underlying message that is sent along with a message to ensure message authentication. The process of using MAC for authentication is depicted in the following illustration minus.
Okay, so what was the asymmetric K difference? Let's remember it.
The basic difference between these two types of encryption is that symmetric encryption uses one key for both encryption and decryption, and the asymmetric encryption uses public key for encryption and a private key for decryption.
Okay, so here MAC algorithm is a symmetric key cryptographic technique to provide message authentication. So sender, what does sender do? Sender gets the message by using key K and using Mac algorithm, it sends the message with its Mac code. Okay, so the receiver takes the message and the Mac algorithm, actually the Mac message, and put the message and the key that that receiver has, and computes the Mac. And if the Mac is equal, so the receiver knows that the message was not forged and the sender of the message is authentic. Okay, so let's try to understand.
Let us now try to understand the entire process in detail. The sender uses some publicly known Mac algorithm, inputs the message and the secret key K and produces a Mac value.
So it takes two variables. One is the message itself, the delivered message, and or let's say the message that will be delivered to the receiver, and the secret key. So the secret key is shared between the sender and the receiver. Okay, this is important. And it is not public. The key is not public. Okay.
Similar to hash, Mac function also compresses an arbitrary long input into a fixed length output. The major difference between hash and Mac is that Mac uses secret key during the compression.
Okay, and so you see this is similar to hashing functions such as MD5 or SHA-256. However, the difference here is that it takes a key, private key. Okay.
The sender forwards the message along with the Mac. Here, we assume that the message is sent in the clear, as we are concerned of providing message origin authentication, not confidentiality. If confidentiality is required, then the message needs encryption.
So here the message is sent as raw. Okay. So the message itself is not encrypted. This is important difference. Only here we are verifying the originator of the message is authentic or not, or the message on the way was forged or not. Okay.
On receipt of the message and the Mac, the receiver feeds the received message and the shared secret key K into the Mac algorithm and recomputes the Mac value.
So here the important thing is the secret key K. Okay.
The receiver now checks equality of freshly computed Mac with the Mac received from the sender. If they match, then the receiver accepts the message and assures himself that the message has been sent by the intended sender. If the computed Mac does not match the Mac sent by the sender, the receiver cannot determine whether it is the message that has been altered or it is the origin that has been falsified. As a bottom line, a receiver safely assumes that the message is not the genuine.
Okay, so there are some limitations of Mac, and let's read them.
There are two major limitations of Mac, both due to its symmetric nature of operation. Establishment of shared secret. It can provide message authentication among pre-decided legitimate users who have shared key. This requires establishment of shared secret prior to use of Mac.
So to be able to use Mac, we need to somehow exchange, or let's say distribute the secret key. So the secret key could be distributed as physically or with some other encrypted method. However, it has to be distributed previously to be able to use Mac algorithm.
Inability to provide non-repudiation.
Okay, this is important. What is non-repudiation?
Non-repudiation is the assurance that a message originator cannot deny any previously sent messages and commitments or actions. Mac technique does not provide a non-repudiation service. If the sender and receiver get involved in a dispute over message origination, Macs cannot provide a proof that a message was indeed sent by the sender. Though no third party can compute the MAC, still sender could deny having sent the message and claim that the receiver forged it, as it is impossible to determine which of the two parties computed the MAC.
Okay, so what is non-repudiation? The problem here that the receiver can also compute a MAC, a valid MAC, because both receiver and the sender has the same key. So the receiver part can forge perfectly valid message and MAC address and claim that it was sent by the sender. However, there is no way to verify sender indeed sent that message because they both have the secret key and they both use the same Mac algorithm, which is a public one in most cases. So this is a non-repudiation problem. Okay.
Both these limitations can be overcome by using the public key-based digital signatures discussed in following section.
Okay, we will see more about that in future. So there are some Mac algorithm types, and if you are interested in them, you may check them. Let's search for them. Okay, let's check about Hmac.
In cryptography, an Hmac, sometimes expanded as either Keyed Hash Message Authentication Code or Hash-Based Message Authentication Code, is a specific type of Message Authentication Code (MAC) involving a cryptographic hash function and a secret cryptographic key. As with any MAC, it may be used to simultaneously verify both the data integrity and the authenticity of a message.
Okay, there's also Cbc Mac. Let's check it too.
In cryptography, a cipher block chaining message authentication code (Cbc Mac) is a technique for constructing a message authentication code from a block cipher. The message is encrypted with some block cipher algorithm in Cbc mode to create a chain of blocks such that each block depends on the proper encryption of the previous block. This interdependence ensures that a change to any of the plaintext bits will cause the final encrypted block to change in a way that cannot be predicted or counteracted without knowing the key to the block cipher.
So in this method, the message itself is also encrypted. It uses some XOR method with keys. Okay, and there is also Cmac. Okay, Cmac is 1K Mac.
One Key Mac (OMAC) is a message authentication code constructed from a block cipher much like the Cbc Mac algorithm. Officially there are two OMAC algorithms, OMAC1 and OMAC2, which are both essentially the same except for a small tweak. OMAC1 is equivalent to CMAC, which became a NIST recommendation in May 2005. It is free for all uses. It is not covered by any patents. 1. In cryptography, CMAC, cipher-based message authentication code, 2, is a block cipher-based message authentication code algorithm. It may be used to provide assurance of the authenticity and, hence, the integrity of binary data. This mode of operation fixes security deficiencies of Cbc Mac. Cbc Mac is secure only for fixed-length messages.
Okay, so it looks like the Cmac is the best one. Okay, so practical message integrity with Mac. How does it work? Alice wants to send a message to Bob. So what does Alice do is Alice uses the shared secret key, which was shared before applying the MET function. So before even starting the message between Bob and Alice, they both have the same shared secret key with, let's say, secure ways. Okay, so this is an assumption. This is a rule for Mac algorithm to work. Then Alice puts her message into the Mac function with this shared secret key. Then calculates the Mac code. Okay, and then with Mac code and the message together, Alice sends to the Bob. Then Bob receives the message and the Mac code, and then Bob calculates the message, the Mac of the message by using the shared secret key K, and then if the message, if the newly computed Mac code and the received Mac code is equal, then Bob knows that the message indeed came from Alice and the message was not forged on the way. Okay, so this is how it works. It's pretty simple. So how does Hmac works? I think we can check from some example perhaps here. Okay, so the H is a cryptographic hash function. So any cryptographic hash function can be used. M is the message to be authenticated. K is the secret key. K over is a block sized key derived from secret key. And this detonates the bitwise exclusive or XOR. Actually, with a simple example, you could understand this probably. Oh, okay. There are already some examples given with key and the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. It generates this. You see, you can use this with easily with MD5, SAH1, and SAH256. And since this works a single way, it is pretty fast, easy to understand. Okay. And then Cbc Mark, which is a bit more advanced way. You see there are a lot of information regarding to Cbc Mac. I am not going to delve into the details because they are really much details. If you are only going to improve an algorithm, develop a new algorithm, or you have to learn the algorithm details, you can look. However, you may then use ready libraries. I wonder if there is any library regarding to these in C#. Let's compose a console application and try it. I'm going to test Hmac, which looks like the simplest one. So I'm composing a C# project with console of .NET Core. Let's select our folder and say yeah. I'm going to name it as this. This source will be uploaded to our GitHub repository as everything else is being uploaded to GitHub repository. By the way, I have purchased a new microphone, so my voice quality should be better. However, my sound card is really not that good still, so I will also purchase a sound card, and hopefully my voice will be even better in future lectures, hopefully. So I'm going to say manage NuGet packages, and I'm going to type a Mac about this would be confused with other Macs, so perhaps Hmac would be better. Okay, a signature creator and validator along with some useful extensions is Python AWS signature version 4 for Reader for Hmac authentication. Okay, I'm going to test this Hmac. Let's open the GitHub of this library. Okay, it installs a lot of things. Okay, let's accept them. Okay, let's open the GitHub repository of the library so we can see some examples perhaps. Okay, there are tests, web API. Okay, this is not what we are looking for, same as actually we can do this, I think. This would behave same. I'm going to use SHA 2060, or let's say find an example of this. So I am going to add here a test text new item. Let's open the debug folder so it will be easier. Okay, so I'm going to say some long text, and let's copy and paste the content here, and I will copy and paste content here as well, and copy and paste content here too, perhaps here too, and here too. Okay, so this long text is about 44 kilobyte. It could be 44 megabyte as well. Then I'm going to have a key, and let's say this key. Okay, so I could use this. It would produce the same thing. So what I'm going to do is sharp. Okay, here. So I'm going to add a class here. I'm not going to use the other installed thing, and I'm going to name it as Hmac. So this will be a public static class Hmac, and then I'm going to add static string compute hash. To use that, I need to add system security cryptography library here. Then I'm going to have a bool, perhaps compute Mac value, which will take strings as our input, and key. So this will also return a string. Perhaps I can use this as public static bool. I think, okay, I'm going to make this static string, and then there will be a verify Mac, and I will make it like this, make it better. So what will this do? This will do like this, key plus input, and I will calculate compute key plus input. Okay. Since the let's say output uh, uh, output space of, or perhaps let's say it's like this. I'm going to write as a note. This is also like password salting, okay, and I can compute hash, let's say max of several files like this, and let's first compute the max of the first file to demonstrate. I'm going to add this as using static Hmac. Okay. Yeah. You need to type the full name of the class. One will be equal to compute Mac value from file. To have file operation, I need to add so it will be reading some long text and the key. So the key will be like this. Then I am going to assume that there is another file, another method, receiver method. Okay. So this receiver will get us. Let's say this will be okay. Bool. So since I have computed the Mac file, I can send my message to the receiver like this. How am I going to do that? I am going to send my message like this and with the Mac. Okay. So what will this receiver do? Receiver will recalculate the Mac as this. How will it do that? It will this time take message and it will have the key itself. Okay. So if equal to receive it Mac, it will print as receive it message was authentic and not forged. Or let's say, okay, this should work. Computed, let's say, okay, so then I'm going to put that. So here basically we are now making a demo of Mac usage between sender and receiver. So it says received message was authentic and not forged. You see received MAC value was this and new computed MAC value was this. For this to work, somehow both sender and receiver has to have same key. Even if I change a letter, this wouldn't work. Okay. And since collisions are extremely, let's say almost impossible in SHA 256 algorithm, it is impossible to change the message without breaking the MAC and without knowing the secret key. Okay, so this would be pretty authentic. And there is also Cbc Mac. For Cbc Mac, we have to write some more code. If you are interested in it, maybe we can find a library. Okay, this is not really that important. I'm going to continue, but you get the idea. So public key cryptography. This is really important, and this is what we use in modern communication. Okay, public key cryptography is the source of HTTPS also. You see SSH high and I think perhaps this can okay TSL. So this is also HTTPS as we know. Okay, we will get more idea about this. So symmetric crypto system.
Symmetric Cryptosystem.
What was the symmetric crypto system? In symmetric crypto system, a single key is used to both encrypt and decrypt the file. So Alice sends a message with using a key source and encryptor and encrypts the message, and then Bob uses the same key for decryption and gets the message. So this is the symmetric crypto system. You see there is a single secure channel and single key, and without having the key Oscar cannot decrypt the message and read its content or change the message. Okay, so with asymmetric crypto system, Alice uses authentic channel to get a public key, encrypt the message with public key, and Bob uses a private key to decrypt the message. Okay, so there are public key inventors. As you can see, there are several inventors of public key. So, asymmetric crypto. Public key cryptography was born in May. Let's read it by this.
Public key cryptography was born in May 1975, the child of two problems and a misunderstanding.
So there is a key distribution and digital signing, trapdoor one-way functions. So this is a big no. Okay. So what are the one-way functions? There is a modular power function.
Given n equals pq, where p and q are prime numbers. No efficient algorithms to find p and q.
Okay, so you are getting a number as n, which is actually multiplication of two prime numbers. You know the prime numbers. Let's remember it if you are not remembering it.
A natural number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. is called a prime number, or a prime, if it is greater than 1 and cannot be written as the product of two smaller natural numbers. The numbers greater than 1 that are not prime are called composite numbers. 2, in other words, n is prime if n items cannot be divided up into smaller equal size groups of more than one item. 3, or if it is not possible to arrange n dots into a rectangular grid that is more than one dot wide and more than one dot high. 4, for example, among the numbers 1 through 6, the numbers 2, 3, and 5 are the prime numbers. 5, as there are no other numbers that divide them evenly, without a remainder. 1 is not prime, as it is specifically excluded in the definition. 4 equals 2 times 2 and 6 equals 2 times 3 are both composite.
So for a number to be prime number, you cannot split it into the smaller groups, okay, except one. So prime numbers are as 2, 3, 4 is not prime because it is multiplication of or product of 2 and 2. 5 is prime, 6 is not because it is 3 product 2, and 7 is prime, 8, 9, 10 is not prime, and 11 is prime. So in here, let's say if n is product or P and Q, there can be only one P and Q because they are both prime numbers. Okay. And in a model power function, there is no efficient algorithm to find P and Q. It can be only found with using brute force, and if that n is a big number, it will take so much time. Okay. So what we are doing is choose a positive integer b and define a function as this. So this will be x over b mod n. Let's find a better definition for this to explain. Okay, let's read it.
Modular exponentiation is a type of exponentiation performed over a modulus. It is useful in computer science, especially in the field of public key cryptography. The operation of modular exponentiation calculates the remainder when an integer b, the base, raised to the nth power, the exponent, b, is divided by a positive integer m, the modulus. In symbols, given base b, exponent e, and modulus m, the modular exponentiation c is c equals b mod m. From the definition of c, it follows that 0 is less than or equal to c less than m.
Okay, let's check an example to understand better. So, for example, b is 5 and a is 3. Okay, so and m is 13. So the solution c is 8 is the remainder of dividing 5 over 3 by 13. So when you divide 125 to 13, there is a remainder as 8. Okay.
Modular exponentiation can be performed with a negative exponent e by finding the modular multiplicative inverse d of b modulo m using the extended Euclidean algorithm. That is,
Okay, let's see if there is more um, Okay, so you get the idea of this actually at the moment. So fx is the x over b mod n. Okay. And then modular exponentiation. Given prime p, generator g, and modular a, power a equal to g over x mod p. Okay. And no efficient algorithms to find x. So what does this mean? Okay. We are going to see what does this mean in our modern public key exchange.
Diffie-Hellman key exchange (NB1) is a method of securely exchanging cryptographic keys over a public channel and was one of the first public key protocols as conceived by Ralph Merkle and named after Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman. 1.2 DH is one of the earliest practical examples of public key exchange implemented within the field of cryptography. Published in 1976 by Diffie and Hellman, this is the earliest publicly known work that proposed the idea of a private key and a corresponding public key.
Okay, let's read it.
Traditionally, secure encrypted communication between two parties required that they first exchange keys by some secure physical means, such as paper key lists transported by a trusted courier. The Diffie-Hellman key exchange method allows two parties that have no prior knowledge of each other to jointly establish a shared secret key over an insecure channel. This key can then be used to encrypt subsequent communications using a symmetric key cipher.
Okay, so the idea here is basically exchanging public key and then without knowing each other priorly and then establishing a shared secret key over an insecure channel and then encrypt the subsequent data exchange. So how it is done? Let's continue.
Diffie-Hellman is used to secure a variety of Internet services. However, research published in October 2015 suggests that the parameters in use for many DH Internet applications at that time are not strong enough to prevent compromise by very well-funded attackers, such as the security services of some countries. 3.
Okay, of course, this was since very early. It is not, let's say, secure at the moment. However, we can get the idea of the explanation. Let's read it.
Cryptographic Explanation. The simplest and the original implementation, too, of the protocol uses the multiplicative group of integers modulo p, where p is prime, and g is a primitive root modulo p. These two values are chosen in this way to ensure that the resulting shared secret can take on any value from 1 to p1. Here is an example of the protocol, with non-secret values in blue, and secret values in red.
So let's read by one by.
Alice and Bob publicly agree to use a modulus p equals 23 and base g equals 5, which is a primitive root modulo 23.
So what is primitive root? Okay, let's understand the primitive root. Okay, so primitive root means that this one.
2 is a primitive root mod 55, because for every number r relatively prime to 5, there is an integer zz such that 2 z equiv a2z is defined as a. All the numbers relatively prime to 5 are 1, 2, 3, 4, and each of these mod 5 is itself, for instance 2 mod 5 equals 2 smiley face.
So here, when you divide p with g, it will be equal to g. This is the primitive root. Okay. So when we split 23 by 5, what would be the reminder? Or not that is the way. The reminder would be, of course, 5, because let's I am understanding, I'm checking. Oh, this means modulus. Oh, I see. So this is something else. Hmm. So 5 over 0 is equal to 1, and 1 mod 23 is 1. Okay. So 5 over 1 is 5. 5 mod 23 is 3. Okay, maybe there is a better explanation for primitive root. Okay, the number 3 is primitive root modulo 7 because oh, so this is 6, 3. Okay, anyway, so this is the primitive root calculation way, and 5 is the primitive root of 23. That's what we need to know. You can also check at the home to see whether it is matching or not. And then Alice chooses.
Alice chooses a secret integer a equals 4, then sends Bob a equals ga mod p.
Okay, so the blues are public and the reds are private. The Alice's secret integer is 4. Bob doesn't know it, or anyone else doesn't know it. However, Bob is receiving number A, which is G over A mod 5. What does that mean? That means that 5 over 4 mod 23 is 4. So Bob is receiving message as 4. Okay. And its chosen secret integer was also 4, as you can see. Then Bob chooses a secret integer b3 and sent Alice b equal to g over b mod p, and this time the result is 10. Okay, so Alice computes this as equals to b over a mod p, and which is equal to 10 over 4 mod 23 equal to 18. Okay, so the Alice computation is 18. Then Bob computes S as A over B. So B was only known by Bob, which is, and mod P, which is equal to 4 over 3 mod 23, 18. So you see, now Alice and Bob share a secret number 18. Okay. So what did they exchange? They exchanged modulus P and base G over a public key distributor. Then they have picked some secret integer and sent these values between them. Okay. So Alice sent 4 to the Bob, and Bob sent 10 to the Alice, and based on those received numbers, they calculated their secret key. So you see they have calculated the same key And now they share the secret key 18. Bob, Alice, and Bob have arrived at the same values because under mod P. You see, this is the methodology. If you think about that, this is a great algorithm. It is very cleverly designed one, and with safely you are calculating a secret key when big numbers are used. It is impossible for computers to calculate these values, okay, because prime numbers are used. Okay, let's then read more.
Only A and B are kept secret. All the other values, P, G, Ga mod P, and GB mod P, are sent in the clear. The strength of the scheme comes from the fact that Gab mod P equals GBA mod P take extremely long times to compute just from the knowledge of P, G, Ga mod P, and GB mod P. Once Alice and Bob compute the shared secret, they can use it as an encryption key, known only to them, for sending messages across the same open communications channel.
So you see, once they both generated the key 18, this key can be used to symmetrically encrypt the data. So since only both of them knows the encryption key, they can both decrypt and encrypt the data between them. Okay, so this is actually basically how HTTPS works. You see, my connection is secure because before my browser connect to the Wikipedia, they shared the public key first, then calculated the private key, and then both of us used that private key, I mean my browser and the Wikipedia, to encrypt data on the internet. When the data of this page delivered to me, it was encrypted, and my browser decrypted it with the established private key. Okay. Important key.
Of course, much larger values of A, B, and P would be needed to make this example secure, since there are only 23 possible results of n mod 23. However, if P is a prime of at least 600 digits, then even the fastest modern computers cannot find a given only G, P and Ga mod P. Such a problem is called the discrete logarithm problem. 3. The computation of Ga mod P is known as modular exponentiation and can be done efficiently even for large numbers. Note that G need not be large at all, and in practice is usually a small integer, like 2, 3.
So you see, the G can be a very small number. However, the P is chosen a big number. You see, it is at least 600 digits. So the number 100 is how many digits? It's only 3 digits. So 1000 is how many digits? It is only 4 digits. And now try to imagine 600 digits. Okay. So secrecy chart.
The chart below depicts who knows what, again with non-secret values in blue, and secret values in red. Here Eve is an eavesdropper. She watches what is sent between Alice and Bob, but she does not alter the contents of their communications.
So this is public G prime base, P public prime modulus, and it is usually above 600 digits, as you can see. And A is Alice private key, only known to the Alice, and B is Bob private key, only known to the Bob. And then they calculate, they send this calculation to each other. Then by using that, they generate a private key. Okay.
Note, it should be difficult for Alice to solve for Bob's private key or for Bob to solve for Alice's private key. If it is not difficult for Alice to solve for Bob's private key, or vice versa, Eve may simply substitute her own private-public key pair, plug Bob's public key into her private key, produce a fake shared secret key, and solve for Bob's private key, and use that to solve for the shared secret key. Eve may attempt to choose a public-private key pair that will make it easy for her to solve for Bob's private key.
Okay, there's another example. Let's check it out. Okay, you can also use this website if you want. But I think it is pretty clear.
Diffie-Hellman key agreement is not limited to negotiating a key shared by only two participants. Any number of users can take part in an agreement by performing iterations of the agreement protocol and exchanging intermediate data, which does not itself need to be kept secret. For example, Alice, Bob, and Carol could participate in a Diffie-Hellman agreement as follows, with all operations taken to be modulo P.
This is important.
An eavesdropper has been able to see GA, GB, GC, GAB, GAC, and GBC, but cannot use any combination of these to efficiently reproduce GABC.
Okay, and let's read this.
The protocol is considered secure against eavesdroppers if G and G are chosen properly. In particular, the order of the group G must be large, particularly if the same group is used for large amounts of traffic. The eavesdropper has to solve the Diffie-Hellman problem to obtain GAB. This is currently considered difficult for groups whose order is large enough. An efficient algorithm to solve the discrete logarithm problem would make it easy to compute A or B and solve the Diffie-Hellman problem, making this and many other public key cryptosystems insecure. Fields of small characteristic may be less secure. 10.
Okay, and practical attacks. Let's read this.
The number field sieve algorithm, which is generally the most effective in solving the discrete logarithm problem, consists of 4 computational steps. The first 3 steps only depend on the order of the group G, not on the specific number whose finite log is desired. 12. It turns out that much internet traffic uses one of a handful of groups that are of order 1024 bits or less. 3. By precomputing the first 3 steps of the number field sieve for the most common groups, an attacker need only carry out the last step, which is much less computationally expensive than the first 3 steps, to obtain a specific logarithm. The logjam attack used this vulnerability to compromise a variety of Internet services that allowed the use of groups whose order was a 512-bit prime number, so-called export grade. The authors needed several thousand CPU cores for a week to precompute data for a single 512-bit prime. Once that was done, individual logarithms could be solved in about a minute using 2 18-core Intel Xeon CPUs. 3. As estimated by the authors behind the logjam attack, the much more difficult precomputation needed to solve the discrete log problem for a 1024-bit prime would cost on the order of $100 million, well within the budget of a large national intelligence agency such as the U.S. National Security Agency (NSA). The logjam authors speculate that precomputation against widely reused 1024-bit DH primes is behind claims in leaked NSA documents that NSA is able to break much of current cryptography. 3. To avoid these vulnerabilities, the logjam authors recommend use of elliptic curve cryptography, for which no similar attack is known. Failing that, they recommend that the order, P, of the Diffie-Hellman group should be at least 2048 bits. They estimate that the pre-computation required for a 2048-bit prime is 109 times more difficult than for 1024-bit primes.
Okay.
3.
Imagine that it will take millions of billions of years. So let's see our security. Perhaps the certificate. Okay, so the certificate is SHQ 256. You see, it is 2048 bits. Currently, my digital encryption is using 2048 bits public key parameters and digital encryption thumbprint. You see, this is how it works. So this is pretty secure. It uses 2048 bits. Even 1024 bits was secure until very strong computers and high budget came into the field. So currently 248 bit prime number is used. Okay, let's continue. So we have basically understood how this is done. You see such example P and number G, and then you calculate this P over A mod P, and the solution is this. So I'm going to make a pause for a moment. Okay.
Diffie-Hellman applications. IPsec IP security. IKE Internet Key Exchange is part of the IPsec protocol suite. IKE is based on Diffie-Hellman key agreement.
Okay, let's check this on the Google.
In computing, Internet Key Exchange (IKE), sometimes IKEv1 or IKEv2, depending on version, is the protocol used to set up a security association (SAW) in the IPsec protocol suite. IKE builds upon the Oakley protocol and ISAKMP. 1. IKE uses by .509 certificates for authentication, either pre-shared or distributed using DNS, preferably with DNS-SEC, and a Diffie-Hellman key exchange to set up a shared session secret from which cryptographic keys are derived. 2. 3. In addition, a security policy for every peer which will connect must be manually maintained. 2.
Okay, so you can also look for more information. And SSL TSL, this is the most known one that we know.
Several variations of SSL, TLS protocol including fixed Diffie-Hellman, ephemeral Diffie-Hellman, anonymous Diffie-Hellman.
So let's search for SSL TSL to get some more idea. Okay. I am sure that you have heard HTTPS, which we are using, connection secure, and I will search for Wikipedia for more information. Okay, this is a very good one for free. Let's encrypt. I like that very much. Works. It is supported by a lot of let's say browsers. Okay.
Transport Layer Security (TLS) and its now deprecated predecessor, Secure Sockets Layer (SSL). 1. Are cryptographic protocols designed to provide communication security over a computer network. 2. Several versions of the protocols find widespread use in applications such as web browsing, email, instant messaging, and voice over IP (VoIP). Websites can use TLS to secure all communications between their servers and web browsers. The TLS protocol aims primarily to provide privacy and data integrity between two or more communicating computer applications. 2. 3. When secured by TLS, connections between a client, e.g., a web browser, and a server, e.g., wikipedia.org, should have one or more of the following properties.
Let's name it.
The connection is private or secure because symmetric cryptography is used to encrypt the data transmitted. The keys for this symmetric encryption are generated uniquely for each connection and are based on a shared secret that was negotiated at the start of the session. See section Tls Handshake. The server and client negotiate the details of which encryption algorithm and cryptographic keys to use before the first byte of data is transmitted. See section Algorithms below. The negotiation of a shared secret is both secure. The negotiated secret is unavailable to eavesdroppers and cannot be obtained, even by an attacker who places themselves in the middle of the connection, and reliable. No attacker can modify the communications during the negotiation without being detected.
So this is really important. Let's read it again.
The negotiation of a shared secret is both secure. The negotiated secret is unavailable to eavesdroppers and cannot be obtained, even by an attacker who places themselves in the middle of the connection, and reliable. No attacker can modify the communications during the negotiation without being detected.
So Tsl Handshake, let's read it.
Tls Handshake. Edit. When the connection starts, the record encapsulates a control protocol, the handshake messaging protocol, content type 22. This protocol is used to exchange all the information required by both sides for the exchange of the actual application data by TLS. It defines the format of messages and the order of their exchange. These may vary according to the demands of the client and server, i.e., there are several possible procedures to set up the connection. This initial exchange results in a successful TLS connection, both parties ready to transfer application data with TLS, or an alert message, as specified below.
Okay, so there are some pages.
A typical connection example follows, illustrating a handshake where the server, but not the client, is authenticated by its certificate. Negotiation phase.
Okay, so these are the phases. Maybe you have noticed that when opening some pages, at first we see the message establishing a secure connection. So this is actually Tsl Handshake. So without let's say without establishing a secure connection, you cannot connect an HTTPS website. Let's try it again from here. Okay, it was too quickly established. Perhaps we can try with our website. Let's try Toros. Okay, it was also instantaneous. Okay, let's try with here. Okay, I couldn't let you see that message, but you may have noticed it in your browsing. If there is some delay between that, you will see that establishing a secure connection first, then the data transfer starts.
The identity of the communicating parties can be authenticated using public key cryptography. This authentication can be made optional, but is generally required for at least one of the parties, typically the server. The connection is reliable because each message transmitted includes a message integrity check using a message authentication code to prevent undetected loss or alteration of the data during transmission. 2, 3.
So you see both data is encrypted and a message authentication code is sent. You see?
In addition to the properties above, careful configuration of TLS can provide additional privacy-related properties such as forward secrecy, ensuring that any future disclosure of encryption keys cannot be used to decrypt any TLS communications recorded in the past. 3.
So let's read more about forward secrecy.
In cryptography, forward secrecy (FS), also known as perfect forward secrecy (PFS), is a feature of specific key agreement protocols that gives assurances that session keys will not be compromised even if long-term secrets used in the session key exchange are compromised. For HTTPS, the long-term secret is typically the private signing key of the server. Forward secrecy protects past sessions against future compromises of keys or passwords. By generating a unique session key for every session a user initiates, the compromise of a single session key will not affect any data other than that exchanged in the specific session protected by that particular key. This by itself is not sufficient for forward secrecy, which additionally requires that a long-term secret compromise does not affect the security of past session keys. Forward secrecy protects data on the transport layer of a network that uses common SSL, TLS protocols, including OpenSSL, when its long-term secret keys are compromised, as with the Heartbleed security bug. If forward secrecy is used, encrypted communications and sessions recorded in the past cannot be retrieved and decrypted should long-term secret keys or passwords be compromised in the future, even if the adversary actively interfered, for example via a man-in-the-middle attack. The value of forward secrecy is that it protects past communication. This reduces the motivation for attackers to compromise keys. For instance, if an attacker learns a long-term key, but the compromise is detected and the long-term key is revoked and updated, relatively little information is leaked in a forward secure system. The value of forward secrecy depends on the assumed capabilities of an adversary. Forward secrecy has value if an adversary is assumed to be able to obtain secret keys from a device, read access, but is either detected or unable to modify the way session keys are generated in the device, full compromise. In some cases, an adversary who can read long-term keys from a device may also be able to modify the functioning of the session key generator, as in the backdoor dual elliptic curve deterministic random bit generator. If an adversary can make the random number generator predictable, past traffic will be protected but all future traffic will be compromised.
Okay, and
the value of forward secrecy is limited not only by the assumption that an adversary will attack a server by only stealing keys and not modifying the random number generator used by the server, but it is also limited by the assumption that the adversary will only passively collect traffic on the communications link and not be active using a man-in-the-middle attack. Forward secrecy typically uses an ephemeral Diffie-Hellman key exchange to prevent reading past traffic. The ephemeral Diffie-Hellman key exchange is often signed by the server using a static signing key. If an adversary can steal or obtain through a court order this static, long-term signing key, the adversary can masquerade as the server to the client and as the client to the server and implement a classic man-in-the-middle attack. 1.
okay, so man-in-the-middle attack, you will heard this a lot of times when you are working with let's say information security. So let's get some more information about it.
Man-in-the-middle attack.
So this is very commonly known, and let's read it.
In cryptography and computer security, a man in the middle, monster in the middle, 1, 2, machine in the middle, monkey in the middle, 3, MITM, or person in the middle, 4, PITM, attack is a cyberattack where the attacker secretly relays and possibly alters the communications between two parties who believe that they are directly communicating with each other. One example of a MITM attack is active eavesdropping, in which the attacker makes independent connections with the victims and relays messages between them to make them believe they are talking directly to each other over a private connection, when in fact the entire conversation is controlled by the attacker. The attacker must be able to intercept all relevant messages passing between the two victims and inject new ones. This is straightforward in many circumstances. For example, an attacker within the reception range of an unencrypted Wi-Fi access point could insert themselves as a man in the middle. As it aims to circumvent mutual authentication, a MITM attack can succeed only when the attacker impersonates each endpoint sufficiently well to satisfy their expectations. Most cryptographic protocols include some form of endpoint authentication specifically to prevent MITM attacks. For example, TLS can authenticate one or both parties using a mutually trusted certificate authority.
So certificate authority is really important. For example, here you see my certificate is valid, issued to Wikipedia, issued by Kaspersky Antivirus Personal Root Certificate. Since I use Kaspersky, it validates the certificate. And let's use some certificate.
In cryptography, a certificate authority or certification authority (CA) is an entity that issues digital certificates. A digital certificate certifies the ownership of a public key by the named subject of the certificate. This allows others, relying parties, to rely upon signatures or on assertions made about the private key that corresponds to the certified public key. A CA acts as a trusted third party, trusted both by the subject owner of the certificate and by the party relying upon the certificate. The format of these certificates is specified by the BY .509 or EMV standard. One particularly common use for certificate authorities is to sign certificates used in HTTPS, the secure browsing protocol for the World Wide Web. Another common use is in issuing identity cards by national governments for use in electronically signing documents.
Okay, so this is also really important. The browsers doesn't trust every certificate authority. Therefore, using an updated and trusted browser is really important. For example, let's see, there are some certificate authorities listed here. IdenTrust, DigiCert, Sectigo, GoTeddy, Global Sign, Certum, Actalis, and such. So if your browser is not trusting the certificate authority, you will see an error message or a warning message here. If, let's say, the server itself is behaving as a certificate authority, you will get an HTTPS error, and you will need to click continue button to access that website. Let me show you, or let's say, okay. Okay, so if you are using a self-signed certificate, you will see this message often because the browser will say that your connection is not private. Attackers might be trying to steal your information from localhost, or let's see some better key. Okay, this is also a good example. The security certificate presented by this website was not issued by a trusted certificate authority. You see, the browsers checks that whether your certificate was issued by a trusted or by a not trusted authority. Therefore, using an updated browser is really important. I think Chrome is pretty much, let's say, trustworthy in this case. Okay, you can read about this. Let's read them.
Ron Rivest, Adi Shamir and Len Adelman. Read about public key cryptography in 1976 article by Diffie-Hellman, New Directions in Cryptography. Intrigued, they worked on finding a practical algorithm. Spent several months in 1976 to reinvent the method for non-secret public key encryption discovered by Clifford Cox 3 years earlier. Named RSA algorithm.
So let's search for RSA algorithm.
RSA, Rivest Shamir Adelman, is a public key cryptosystem that is widely used for secure data transmission. It is also one of the oldest. The acronym RSA comes from the surnames of Ron Rivest, Adi Shamir, and Leonard Adelman, who publicly described the algorithm in 1977. An equivalent system was developed secretly, in 1973 at GCHQ, the British Signals Intelligence Agency, by the English mathematician Clifford Cocks. That system was declassified in 1997.
Okay. So you see, most of the algorithms used in computer science is discovered by mathematicians, and they are discovered many years ago. Currently, it is extremely hard to discover a new algorithm that will make a game-breaking change in the algorithm world. You can only try to improve existing algorithms, so it is really hard to develop new algorithms. Most of the algorithms are discovered many years ago.
In a public key cryptosystem, the encryption key is public and distinct from the decryption key, which is kept secret, private. An RSA user creates and publishes a public key based on two large prime numbers, along with an auxiliary value. The prime numbers are kept secret. Messages can be encrypted by anyone, via the public key, but can only be decoded by someone who knows the prime numbers. The security of RSA relies on the practical difficulty of factoring the product of two large prime numbers, the factoring problem. Breaking RSA encryption is known as the RSA problem. Whether it is as difficult as the factoring problem is an open question. There are no published methods to defeat the system if a large enough key is used.
Okay, this is really important.
If a large enough key is used, RSA is a relatively slow algorithm. Because of this, it is not commonly used to directly encrypt user data. More often, RSA is used to transmit shared keys for symmetric key cryptography, which are then used for bulk encryption decryption.
Okay, so there is history of it if you want to read. And I would say these guys are genius to develop these algorithms because developing a new algorithm is extremely hard thing. When you try it, you will know it. If you do a master degree or PhD, you will be needed to develop a new algorithm, and you will understand what I mean. Okay, right. If you want to know more about that, you can read. Okay, so this is similar to Halfman algorithm. There is toy example. Perhaps you can find a better one here. Yes. Okay, so numbers representing plain text message, numbers representing ciphertext message, and such. The number, and let's read it. I hope it can read it.
The number is chosen to be a product of two primes. Normally, the factors are huge, making the task of splitting practically impossible. However, for illustration, we choose two small primes, and so that the quantity is Euler's totient function, given by
Maybe I can find something that will be. Okay, it's a simple thing. If you want to know more about it, you can check. So let's say to be readable.
Set P equals 157, Q equals 223. Then N equals PQ equals 157 223 equals 35,011 and P1 Q1 equals 156 222 equals 34,632. Set encryption exponent, E equals 14,213, GCD, 34,632, 14,213 equals 1.
So what is GCD? Let's check it out. D plus E equal 1 mod P1. This one. And then public key is equal to this.
Compute, D equals E minus 1 equals 14,213 minus 1, mod 34,632 equals 31,613.
Okay, so the public key is this one. I mean private key is this one. And public key was this one. Encryption. So the encryption works this way. And decryption works this way. There is factoring records. Okay.
Computational effort? Factoring using NFS algorithm, number field sieve. 6MND using 80 cores to find suitable polynomial. Solding from August 2007 to April 2009, 1500 AMD 64R. 192,796,550 asterisk 192,795,550 matrice 105 gigabytes. 119 days on 8 different clusters. Corresponds to 2000 years processing on one single core 2.2 GHz AMD Opteron CA. 267 instructions.
So NSA algorithm is not very dependable, and I think it is decrypted in the, or maybe two big numbers are used. Let's check this. Okay. So let's read this to get more idea.
That question feels like the question, what is the difference between a truck and an 8-cylinder engine? They are different, in the sense that they serve different goals. HTTPS may use RSA, just like a truck may use an 8-cylinder engine, however HTTPS has a lot more to it, just like a truck consists of a lot more than the engine. RSA is a cryptographical primitive. It can be used to implement public key encryption, as the page mentions, that is, someone can have a public key, which they can distribute. Anyone can use that public key to encrypt messages that only the holder of the private key can read. RSA can also implement signatures. Someone with the private key can sign messages, and anyone with the public key can verify that that message was signed. HTTPS is a cryptographical protocol. In particular, it tries to be a method of implementing security for transit HTTP traffic. It makes sure that the HTTP traffic you get is actually from the web server you think it is, and that no one can read it or modify it in transit. It can use RSA as one of the cryptographical primitives it relies on, but it doesn't have to. Actually, the current trend is to get away from RSA public key encryption in favor of other primitives. In addition, it also relies on other cryptographical primitives as well.
Okay, so there is some more information here.
RSA is a cryptographic primitive. It relies on the RSA problem to be secure, using modular exponentiation as primitive for encryption or signature generation. RSA as such can be used as part of the TLS protocol to authenticate and to establish session keys. It may also be used as algorithm within the required PKI-based certificate infrastructure, RSA-based certificates from certificate authorities. In TLS 1.3, RSA is not used anymore for key establishment. It is only used to authenticate the server and optionally the client through the PKI-based certificate chains and a final signature generated by the leaf certificate belonging to the server or client. RSA can be used within TLS 1.2 and earlier to establish the keys and to authenticate the server at the same time. This option to establish keys using RSA doesn't deliver forward security, so it was removed from 1.3 altogether. Client authentication is also still a possibility.
So you see forward security is important. That prevents previous sessions to be read, decrypted. Okay, so are the RSA and HTTPS the same thing? No.
No, both are very different. RSA is a cryptographic primitive while HTTPS is an application-level protocol in the OSI layer definition. Even as concepts, they can hardly be further apart. Yes, they both can be used to encrypt data, but that's where the comparison ends. HTTPS may or may not use RSA. Currently, there seems to be a shift to elliptic curve cryptography over RSA because it is more efficient and secure. If quantum computers come of age, TLS may have to switch to post-quantum cryptography. In that case, HTTPS may well be practical long after RSA or elliptic curves have become deprecated. RSA is asymmetric as it uses public and private keys. HTTPS commonly employs both symmetric and asymmetric encryption, but at the message encryption level it just uses symmetric session keys. Asymmetric encryption may not be used at all on TLS session resumption or when TLS entity authentication is performed through pre-shared keys (PSK). Note that I don't see the claim that RSA and HTTPS, TLS are in the article at all.
Okay, so this is the article that they are talking about. There are so many information that you can find on the internet until you understand it. So about computational effort, if you use small numbers, they can be easily decrypted at the moment. And let's see some asymmetric ciphers.
Asymmetric ciphers, examples of cryptosystems. RSA, best known asymmetric algorithm. RSA equals Rivest, Shamir, and Adelman, published 1977. Historical note: UK cryptographer Clifford Cox invented the same algorithm in 1973, but didn't publish. Elgamal cryptosystem, based on the difficulty of solving the discrete log problem. Elliptic curve cryptography, based on the difficulty of solving the EC discrete log problem, provides same level of security with smaller key sizes.
Okay, so this is the new trend as mentioned. Let's check it out.
Elliptic curve cryptography (ECC) is an approach to public key cryptography based on the algebraic structure of elliptic curves over finite fields. ECC allows smaller keys compared to non-EC cryptography based on plain Galois fields to provide equivalent security. 1. Elliptic curves are applicable for key agreement, digital signatures, pseudo-random generators and other tasks. Indirectly, they can be used for encryption by combining the key agreement with a symmetric encryption scheme. They are also used in several integer factorization algorithms based on elliptic curves that have applications in cryptography, such as Lenstra elliptic curve factorization.
Okay, so I think this is more advanced.
The primary benefit promised by elliptic curve cryptography is a smaller key size, reducing storage and transmission requirements, 6, i.e. that an elliptic curve group could provide the same level of security afforded by an RSA-based system with a large modulus and correspondingly larger key. For example, a 256-bit elliptic curve public key should provide comparable security to a 3072-bit RSA public key.
So you see this is a huge number, and same security can be obtained with elliptic cryptography with just 256. Okay, there is theory, and I think it would be harder to understand within a small time. Okay, so just no.
Asymmetric encryption, basic encryption operation. In practice, large messages are not encrypted directly with asymmetric algorithms. Hybrid systems are used, where only symmetric session key is encrypted with asymmetric alg.
Okay, so for large messages, we don't use asymmetric encryption because it is, let's say, more computationally expensive. Asymmetric encryption is used to exchange keys, and then symmetric encryption is used. Okay, because exchanging private keys is harder. You just compose the same private key to encrypt and decrypt at the same time with the same key. Okay, so there is hybrid cryptosystems.
Hybrid cryptosystems. Symmetric ciphers are faster than asymmetric ciphers because they are less computationally expensive, but asymmetric ciphers simplify key distribution. Therefore, a combination of both symmetric and asymmetric ciphers can be used. A hybrid system, the asymmetric cipher is used to distribute a randomly chosen symmetric key. The symmetric cipher is used for encrypting bulk data. Confidentiality services, hybrid cryptosystems.
So Alice uses a key random symmetric key to encrypt the text and send the ciphered text to Bob, and Bob uses that case random symmetric key to decrypt it, and the random symmetric key is composed with Bob's public key and Bob's private key based on Alice's public key ring. I think this is the what TSL uses, and there is digital signatures.
Digital signature mechanisms. A Mac cannot be used as evidence that should be verified by a third party. Digital signatures used for non-repudiation, data origin authentication and data integrity services, and in some authentication exchange mechanisms. Digital signature mechanisms have three components: key generation, signing procedure, private, verification procedure, public.
So this is different than Mac because in Mac you can verify the originator of the message. However, you can't verify whether that originator sent that message. So the receiver can also generate a fake message and claim that it was sent by the sender. However, you can't verify that because it could be generated by the receiver or it could be sent by the sender. Okay. However, with digital signature, you can verify that the sender was actually the sender or not. So algorithms used are
RSA, DSA and ECDSA. Practical digital signature based on hash value.
so there is digital signature with hashing. You generate hash and recover hash from signatures. Let's Read about it.
Digital signatures. To get an authentication service that links a document to A's name, identity, and not just a verification key, we require a procedure for B to get an authentic copy of A's public key. Only then do we have a service that proves the authenticity of documents signed by A. This can be provided by a PKI, public key infrastructure. Yet even such a service does not provide non-repudiation at the level of persons. Difference between MACs and DIG. SIG. MACs and digital signatures are both authentication mechanisms. MAC, the verifier needs the secret that was used to compute the MAC, thus a MAC is unsuitable as evidence with a third party. The third party does not have the secret. The third party cannot distinguish between the parties knowing the secret. Digital signatures can be validated by third parties, and can in theory thereby support both non-repudiation and authentication.
Okay, so there is key length comparison between
Key length comparison, symmetric and asymmetric ciphers offering comparable security.
so there is 3 types.
AES key size, RSA key size, elliptic curve key size.
And we know that now LSA key size has to be at least 2000. Therefore, this would be not secure. As you can see, AES doesn't provide a non-secure key size. And with ASA key size 128, we obtain 3000 LSA key size, which is pretty secure, and elliptic curve 256. So ASA is also a lot used.
Advanced Encryption Standard. The Advanced Encryption Standard (AES), also known by its original name Reyndal, Dutch pronunciation, Rindel, 3, is a specification for the encryption of electronic data established by the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology (NIST) in 2001. 4. AES is a subset of the Reyndal block cipher, 3, developed by two Belgian cryptographers, Vincent Ryman and Joan Dayman, who submitted a proposal, 5, to NIST during the AES selection process. 6. Reyndal is a family of ciphers with different key and block sizes. For AES, NIST selected 3 members of the Reyndal family, each with a block size of 128 bits, but 3 different key lengths, 128, 192 and 256 bits. AES has been adopted by the U.S. government and is now used worldwide. It supersedes the Data Encryption Standard (DE) 7, which was published in 1977. The algorithm described by AES is a symmetric key algorithm, meaning the same key is used for both encrypting and decrypting the data. In the United States, AES was announced by the NIST as US FIPS Pub 197, FIPS 197 on November 26, 2001. 4. This announcement followed a 5-year standardization process in which 15 competing designs were presented and evaluated, before the Reyndal cipher was selected as the most suitable. See Advanced Encryption Standard process for more details.
Okay, so this is the now standard used, and there's also process explain it. If you want to know more about it, you can read it. And you see AAS is the best one. And if you look at the key lengths, you see these are the key sizes that provides global security and solar security, as you can see. So symmetric key size, cryptographic cache size, RSA modulus. So if the modulus is under 2000, it becomes less secure. After 2000, it starts to become more secure. And if quantum computing arrives, we may need to change how we may need to update the key sizes or change the algorithms, because with quantum computing, it can be millions times, billions times, or more times faster than what computers can do now. But however, it is still more an idea than a reality.
Quantum computers. Proposed by Richard Feynman 1982, boosted by P. Shor's algorithm for integer factorization and discrete logarithm in quantum polynomial time, operates on qubit superposition of 0 and 1. IBM built a 7-bit quantum computer and could find the factors of the integer 15 using NMR techniques in 2001. NMR does not scale. Progress continues, but nobody knows if or when a large-scale quantum computer ever can be constructed. QC will kill current public key techniques, but does not mean an end to symmetric crypto. QC impact to cryptography. When will a quantum computer be built? -15 years, $1 billion USD, nuclear power plant, PQ Crypto 2014, Matteo Mariantoni, Impact, Public Key Crypto, RSA, Elliptic Curve Cryptography, ECDSA, Finite Field Cryptography, DSA, Diffie-Hellman Key Exchange Symmetric Key Crypto, AES need larger keys, Triple-Day need larger keys hash functions, SHA-1, SHA-2 and SHA-3 use longer output.
So this is the current world record of factorization and two variants of quantum safe crypto.
Two variants of quantum safe crypto. Quantum cryptography, the use of quantum mechanics to guarantee secure communication. It enables two parties to produce a shared random secret key known only to them, which can then be used to encrypt and decrypt messages. Quantum-resistant cryptography, the use of cryptographic mechanisms based on computationally difficult problems for which no efficient quantum computing algorithm is known. Quantum-resistant cryptograph. Code-based asymmetric algorithms, lattice-based asymmetric algorithms, asymmetric crypto based on multivariate polynomials, asymmetric crypto based on cryptographic hash functions, asymmetric crypto based on isogenies of supersingular elliptic curves.
Okay, so we have arrived at the end of the lecture. However, there was something that I would like to check it. Okay.
A digital signature is a mathematical scheme for verifying the authenticity of digital messages or documents. A valid digital signature, where the prerequisites are satisfied, gives a recipient very strong reason to believe that the message was created by a known sender, authentication, and that the message was not altered in transit. Integrity. 1. Digital signatures are a standard element of most cryptographic protocol suites, and are commonly used for software distribution, financial transactions, contract management software, and in other cases where it is important to detect forgery or tampering. Digital signatures are often used to implement electronic signatures, which includes any electronic data that carries the intent of a signature. 2. But not all electronic signatures use digital signatures. 3. 4. In some countries, including Canada. 5. South Africa. 6. The United States, Algeria. 7. Turkey, India. 8. Brazil, Indonesia, Mexico, Saudi Arabia. 9. Uruguay. 10. Switzerland, Chile. 11. And the countries of the European Union. 12. 13. Electronic signatures have legal significance. Electronic signatures have legal significance.
It is important. Currently in Turkey, it is also commonly used.
Digital signatures employ asymmetric cryptography. In many instances, they provide a layer of validation and security to messages sent through a non-secure channel. Properly implemented, a digital signature gives the receiver reason to believe the message was sent by the claimed sender. Digital signatures are equivalent to traditional handwritten signatures in many respects, but properly implemented digital signatures are more difficult to forge than the handwritten type. Digital signature schemes, in the sense used here, are cryptographically based, and must be implemented properly to be effective. Digital signatures can also provide non-repudiation, meaning that the signer cannot successfully claim they did not sign a message, while also claiming their private key remains secret. Further, some non-repudiation schemes offer a timestamp for the digital signature, so that even if the private key is exposed, the signature is valid. 15. Digitally signed messages may be anything representable as a bitstring. Examples include electronic mail, contracts, or a message sent via some other cryptographic protocol. A digital signature scheme typically consists of three algorithms: a key generation algorithm that selects a private key uniformly at random from a set of possible private keys. The algorithm outputs the private key and a corresponding public key. A signing algorithm that, given a message and a private key, produces a signature. A signature verifying algorithm that, given the message, public key and signature, either accepts or rejects the message's claim to authenticity. Two main properties are required. First, the authenticity of a signature generated from a fixed message and fixed private key can be verified by using the corresponding public key. Secondly, it should be computationally infeasible to generate a valid signature for a party without knowing that party's private key. A digital signature is an authentication mechanism that enables the creator of the message to attach a code that acts as a signature. The Digital Signature Algorithm (DSA), developed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is one of many examples of a signing algorithm. In the following discussion, 1n refers to a unary number. Formally, a digital signature scheme is a triple of probabilistic polynomial time algorithms, G, S, V, satisfying G key generator generates a public key, PK, and a corresponding private key, SK, on input 1n, where n is the security parameter. S signing returns a tag, T, on the inputs, the private key, SK, and a string, X. V verifying outputs accepted or rejected on the inputs, the public key, PK, a string, X, and a tag, T. For correctness, S and V must satisfy PR, PK, SK, left pointing arrow G, 1n, V, PK, X, S, SK, X equals accepted equals 1, 16. In 1976, Whitfield Diffie and Martin-Hellman first described the notion of a digital signature scheme, although they only conjectured that such schemes existed based on functions that are trapdoor one-way permutations. 19. Soon afterwards, Ronald Rivest, Adi Shamir, and Len Adelman invented the RSA algorithm, which could be used to produce primitive digital signatures. 20. Although only as a proof of concept, plain RSA signatures are not secure. 21. The first widely marketed software package to offer digital signature was Lotus Notes 1.0, released in 1989, which used the RSA algorithm. 22. Other digital signature schemes were soon developed after RSA, the earliest being Lamport signatures. 23. Merkle signatures, also known as Merkle trees or simply hash trees. 24. And Rabin signatures. 25.
Okay. There is the method. Let's also read the method.
Method edit. One digital signature scheme of many is based on RSA. To create signature keys, generate RSA key pair containing a modulus, n, that is the product of two random secret distinct large primes, along with integers, e and d, such that ed is defined as 1 mod phi n, where phi is the Euler phi function. The signer's public key consists of n and e, and the signer's secret key contains d. To sign a message, m, the signer computes a signature, sigma, such that sigma is defined as md mod n. To verify, the receiver checks that sigma e is defined as m mod n. Several early signature schemes were of a similar type. They involve the use of a trapdoor permutation, such as the RSA function, or in the case of the Rabin signature scheme, computing square modulo composite, n. A trapdoor permutation family is a family of permutations, specified by a parameter, that is easy to compute in the forward direction, but is difficult to compute in the reverse direction without already knowing the private key, trapdoor. Trapdoor permutations can be used for digital signature schemes, where computing the reverse direction with the secret key is required for signing, and computing the forward direction is used to verify signatures. Used directly, this type of signature scheme is vulnerable to key-only existential forgery attack. To create a forgery, the attacker picks a random signature sigma and uses the verification procedure to determine the message, m, corresponding to that signature. 28. In practice, however, this type of signature is not used directly, but rather, the message to be signed is first hashed to produce a short digest, that is then padded to larger width comparable to n, then signed with the reverse trapdoor function. 29. This forgery attack, then, only produces the padded hash function output that corresponds to sigma, but not a message that leads to that value, which does not lead to an attack. In the random oracle model, hash then sign, an idealized version of that practice where hash and padding combined have close to n possible outputs. This form of signature is existentially unforgeable, even against a chosen plaintext attack. 19. Clarification needed. There are several reasons to sign such a hash or message digest instead of the whole document. For efficiency, the signature will be much shorter and thus save time since hashing is generally much faster than signing in practice. For compatibility, messages are typically bit strings, but some signature schemes operate on other domains, such as, in the case of RSA, numbers modulo a composite number n. A hash function can be used to convert an arbitrary input into the proper format. For integrity without the hash function, the text, to be signed, may have to be separated, in blocks small enough for the signature scheme to act on them directly. However, the receiver of the signed blocks is not able to recognize if all the blocks are present and in the appropriate order.
Okay, there is also notions of security, applications, authentication, non-repudiation, and such. You can read about them at the home. And perhaps there can be some images. So, signer data encryption private key, digital signed document, hash algorithm, decryption public key, hash value signature is valid if two hash matches receiver. Okay. Okay, and everything is based on mathematical functions and algorithms so far. So if you are wondering any of them, you can look for the internet for more information. For today, this week, this is enough. I'm going to upload values to upload the slide and the source code to the our GitHub repository. Uh, so if you have any questions, please ask me by my email. As you know, COVID-19 is still dangerous, so please stay at home. Be careful. Hopefully see you next week, end of lecture. And we are looking for always subtitle volunteers to correct our subtitles. Please contact me for that purpose as well.